Hey, podcast listeners, welcome to What You're Reading, the podcast where I connect with fellow book enthusiasts to chat about our latest reads, the topics that fuel our bookish obsession, and all those things that keep us glued to those pages. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode. Today, we're talking about reading books that you enjoy and how to find them. I'm sitting down with fellow Bookstagrammer Kina to talk about what it looks like to figure out your reading taste. I've had quite a few conversations over these last couple of months of people who are just generally curious as to how I figured out specific book themes that tend to work for me. I saw Kina talking about this on Instagram not too long ago, and so I invited her into the guest chair to talk about what the process kind of looks like. Spoiler alert, it's a lot of trial and error. So we get into what has worked for us when it comes to reading and figuring out our taste, what hasn't, and of course, we're giving you tons of book recs. So let's get into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of What You're Reading. Today, guys, we are going to have a discussion about finding books that you love and really learning and honing in on your unique reading style. So I've got a great guest that I'm going to introduce you here to in a second. We met on Instagram. I want to say we've probably been Instagram friends for maybe like the last year or so. And I've noticed like we have a lot of similar reading tastes and have just chatted back and forth, whether actually on the grid or through DMs. And so I just reached out to you, and I'm so glad that you accepted to come on, because I think you had a story posted where you were talking about how you've learned your reading taste and you're not reading anything that just doesn't sound interesting to you. And I loved that conversation that you were having on your stories. And so I just wanted to invite you on to kind of talk to the people about that. And I think this is something people really struggle with, is forcing themselves to read like the popular books, the Oprah Book Club, the Reese, the all of the things, because everyone else is loving them. Even if they're not, they think like maybe something's wrong with them. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you guys to Kina. We'll talk a little bit about where you can find her Instagram and everything throughout the episode. But say hello to everyone and please introduce yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Kina, and I have a Bookstagram. It's called Lit and Listen, and I started it back in May of 2023. And I basically started it because I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was starting one herself. And I was like, that sounds so cool. And I was like, I never thought about that. And I had just recently got back into reading. I go back and forth with reading, with life, it'd be life. And so I go back and forth. So I started it, and I thought like nobody's gonna listen to me or care about what books I'm reading or my recommendations or anything like that. But I grew so much in my reading that I just really enjoyed it. So that's where I started with Bookstagram. I am a mom of two. I have a 21-year-old and a 15-year-old, both boys, and I've been married for 15 years. I also work in the digital marketing space. So I'm a Black woman in tech. So
Oh,
that's
nice.
really
I
it about
love
me.
that. How long have you been in digital marketing?
I have to be honest, so let's start way back. Me and my husband bought a coffee shop back in 2009. It's something that he wanted to do. I wanted nothing to do with it. But I wasn't working at the time. So I was like, this is your dream, this is your goal, something you want to do. I'm all for it. So I started then. I started with social media marketing, doing it all myself, to where I started my own very small agency of one, me, doing social media marketing. And then I transformed over to SEO, search engine optimization. So right now I'm a strategist for an agency. So it's been it's 2000, about 14 years.
Okay, awesome. I asked because entrepreneurial brain, I'm an event planner. It's great.
I love
It's
that.
being your own boss is it's its own
Yeah. Yes.
it's its own thing. You have no one to blame but you.
Yes.
um so it's definitely different. But I love, hearing entrepreneurial journeys and just business journeys, and the ways, you do something for a minute and it works for the time being, and then, you evolve and grow and into something else. So I
Yep.
love hearing those types of stories. So let's give the listeners a little bit more information about like your reading style. If you want to share maybe the last 1 to 2 books that you've read, they can be books that you enjoyed or just in general.
So I just finished two books and I enjoyed both of them. One was a 5-star read, one was a four. I started off, so I'll start with this. I read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez
Mm.
before the year was over, and I read it in maybe 24 hours. So I didn't know that there was one prior.
Ah,
So I went back. So I just read Part of Your World by her. Amazing book, 5 stars. And then I just finished yesterday. I just finished Perfect Little Lives by Amber and Danielle Brown. They're two identical, gorgeous Black twins who wrote a little sexy thriller. So it was really good. They have a book prior to that too that I need to read.
oh my gosh. Okay, I think I saw you post about that, but I didn't know. So it's two twins writing a book
Yes,
together. That's
yes.
awesome. I
Yeah.
love
And they have another one. I need to get to that one. I haven't read it yet, but this one was really good. It was different, but I really enjoyed it.
Okay, okay, I love that. I have a hard time with the typical thrillers that are put out there. One, for the most part, because I'm not thrilled. Like I end up being bored in them and I'm like, this is doing nothing for me. So I have a hard time going into thrillers other than YA thrillers. For whatever reason,
So
YA
good.
thrillers tend to do it for me.
So good.
I don't know what it is. They are so good. So I'm gonna have to add that one to my list. And I'm really intrigued that it's not only two authors but two twins. So I'm really
Yes.
intrigued to see their writing style on that one.
Two identical twins too. So
That's
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 crazy.
yeah. Oh, that's so great. I love it. Okay, and so I know you said you just finished that one yesterday. What are you either currently picking up or plan to pick up over the weekend?
So, Lauren Lacey always, I'm part of her little team and she always sends books. And I'm now reading The Family She Found by Lauren Lacey. It's like a novella. It's short, but it's like last night I didn't want to put it down, but I didn't feel well.
Mm,
So I had to put it down so I get some rest. But it's really good. It's a romance story. It's very spicy.
okay, okay. I've never read anything from that author, so again, I'll definitely have to check it out. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing those. We're gonna move right on in to the meat of our discussion. Can you tell us a little bit more about like your overall style of books that you not only love to read, but the books that you love to share on your account?
So, as a Black woman, I love reading books by Black women. So, I will share those to the end of time. So, that's where I start off with. And of course, those are not the only books that I read, but those are the books I enjoy because a lot of times I can see myself in those books. I know the lingo and things like that, so it's easier for me to relate. So, I do read those, but I read a ton of books. I'll tell you how I started back reading. This was back in, I guess, maybe March of last year. I was just looking online and I saw everybody posting all these Colleen Hoover books. And I was like, who is this? I was like, I don't know who this is. And I was like, okay, well, so let me go grab a Colleen Hoover book. So I started off with Verity.
I was gonna ask you which one. Okay. That's the only one I've ever read. I don't need to read anymore, but okay.
Do not. So that one, I started off with that one, and that one just like jump started me in reading because I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Then I was like, well, let me get all these other books. And if I could turn my computer around, I have all of them because I just thought things were going to change. But I will say that, just getting into reading like that, I wasn't a huge romance reader at that time. So reading Verity was good because it was like a thriller.
Mhm.
So when I got into the romance stuff, it was kind of like, okay, okay. But then I kept reading and I kept reading and I kept reading. So that opened up a lot of books to me just to read. So that's when I got started with the Bookstagram and then seeing what other people are reading and things like that. So I'm a thriller girl. It bothers me that sometimes, well, actually, most of the time, I can figure out who done it before it's over.
Really? I'm so bad
But
at that.
so, like I said, with Perfect Little Lives, I figured it out, but then I questioned myself.
Mm,
So that's why I thought that was good. But I am a thriller girly. I do love romance now too. I'm getting more into the romance books. So my reading style is usually, we'll talk about this later, but reading what I want to read.
mhm. Yeah, reading what feels good. Now, just really quick, on the subject of Colleen Hoover and Verity, and I know we all have our own thoughts and opinions. But the one thing that I will say is I think for people who are getting back into reading, because I've had a few friends who that was their entry too, and they were like, I haven't read a book in a year, and I read this
Right.
within 48 hours. Like,
Yes.
am I a reader? Like, it just made them feel so good to read, to be able to get into it. And I think it's like one of those, it's not overly complicated, it's very
Mhm.
simple. If I remember correctly, it was really short, like 10 to 15-minute chapters to where you could just say,
Yep.
okay, one more. So I think there's something there when people are looking to get back into reading, not saying they have to read that one, but a book
Right.
similar, right, to something like that, where
Right.
you've got short chapters, you've got a plot that's just continually moving forward. I think everything in that book happened within a matter of, I don't know, 2 3 weeks. Like,
Oh, yes, very
yeah,
short.
it was really short. So I think there are some like nuggets in there that we can take
Mhm.
out to find books like that style
Yeah.
that would help people really get back into their reading habit.
Yes. And that's good to hear that a lot of people started off kind of with, oh, who is this that everybody's reading? And you get back into it and you venture out. You don't just stick with Colleen Hoover.
Right.
You don't just stick with her style of books, but you move into other things. And I look around my office right now where there's like hundreds of books that I haven't even opened yet. So,
Right. Oh, I got a bunch of them over here too. So, have you always had a strong sense, or at least for the last year, now that you're, back into reading, have you always had a
mhm.
strong sense of the type of books that you like, or do you feel like you've been able to kind of hone in on that more within this last year?
So this past year, I figured like, when I started reading, I was just reading whatever everyone else was reading. Trying to read, ooh, this was on Book Talk. Let me read this. It must be good. Things like that. To where I finally found what I enjoyed reading, which, I've spent my whole life, I've read mystery books and thriller books like that. So getting into books that, I can either like see myself in it, or I've been through similar situations, or just something that I can laugh at, or, maybe even cry at, which is very rare, but it has happened. I found what I like to read, but I started off reading honestly what everyone else was reading.
Yeah, and I think we tend to, gravitate towards that, especially when there's so many people that loved it.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, the odds of me liking it are should be pretty should be pretty high. And sometimes I wonder, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, like, are people liking these books because everyone else is liking them, or did they really think this was a good book? Are they just talking about this because it's the popular book to talk about now and it'll get them followers? Like, sometimes I look at it and I just wonder, like, do you really like this? Like, I just
Because I've been there. I've
yeah.
been there. Like when you first start your Bookstagram, you want followers. So
Yeah.
you're reading the popular books. You're giving them all the accolade. Oh, this book was amazing. And then in the back of your mind, was it? Was it amazing? Or are you just saying that? And I can say, honestly, in the beginning, there were times where I just said it
Mhm.
because it's like everyone else likes it. So in order for people to listen to me or follow me or be interested in anything that I'm talking about, I have to agree with the masses. And that really isn't the way of reading. And I figured that out lately. So,
Right. No,
yeah.
I totally understand. And I think it's interesting that you say that, because I was reading, what did I read over the summer? I read an Emily Henry book over the summer, and I've read all of her romance books. And after that one, I was just like, I don't know that Emily Henry's for me. Like, and
After that one,
yeah, it was like I've read them all, and I was just kind of like, none of these feel like romance, especially because I had started reading, Kennedy Ryan, and I was
oh,
like, I don't feel this way about Emily Henry. It feels very woman fiction with a sprinkle of romance in there, with an exception of People We Meet on Vacation, and I think that's probably my favorite one. But it got me wondering. Like, I kept seeing all of these reviews of people who are like, "Oh my god, this Happy People made me sob," and I'm like, "Did it? Did I? What's wrong with me?" Because it didn't make me sob.
that's sitting over there collecting dust. I haven't read it yet. I need to,
Oh, I'm
but maybe
sorry. I don't
not.
want to ruin it for you.
Oh, you're fine. That's good to know. I like to know these things. So
Yeah,
it took you a while to figure out that she wasn't for you.
and I think it's, they're great. Uh, It's gonna be an audio listen for me for whichever one I think funny story or whatever she has coming up this year. It's just gonna be an audio listen from the library, and they're great, popcorny, simple ones.
Yeah,
But knowing now that I like romance that feel a little bit deeper, that have a little bit more spice, that
yeah.
have, a little bit more connection between the people,
Yes.
and I like to see the romance happen. And I feel like
Yes.
in a lot of her books, not a lot, at least in Happy People, it felt like there was a
Mhm.
lot of telling, like there was a lot of flashbacks, and she was telling what happened, but we didn't necessarily get to see everything that happened.
Okay.
So just one of my thoughts as I'm watching all of these people cry over Happy People, and I'm like, or maybe there's just something wrong with me.
Like, did I miss something?
So, how do you figure out which books you don't like? Like, is there a moment in reading? Is there just a trope or a theme that you just know, like, I don't like this in TV shows or in movies, so I'm not going to like this in a book? Like, how do you kind of hone in on what you don't like?
So it takes a minute. It takes me a minute. Like I'll give everything a chance except for I gave dark romance a chance. I'm not doing that again. So
Can I ask
it
which
just was
one?
um I cannot think. Carved in Scars. It was too much for me.
Okay.
Like anybody else, I'm sure they can enjoy, but it was a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm not prepared for a lot.
Yeah.
I'm prepared for fun and love and happiness and some maybe somebody dies, but still this was too much.
Okay.
But for me, like if I I'll give most books a chance. So I'll start reading and then when I get to like page 60 and it's taking me 4 days to get to page
Mm,
60, this isn't for me. And there would be times prior to this, prior to, I'll say, towards the end of the year, where I gotta read it, I gotta push through because it's an arc or because it's something that
mm,
everyone else likes to read. And it's like, I don't wanna waste my time
mhm,
when I could get into another book that I'm gonna thoroughly enjoy. I'm not gonna waste my time reading something that is just not for me. And I think people have to understand that everything is not for everybody, and that's okay. Don't force yourself to push through a book that you're not seeing any type of connection with. So it took me a while to figure that out because I would just push through maybe 2 weeks and I'm like, okay, I'm finally done. But how do I feel after reading it?
mm,
I felt like this was an assignment.
mm,
And, as an adult, I don't go to school. So I don't really want an assignment like I have to do this, I have to do this. It's reading to me is something that I want to do. It's not a chore. It's something that I enjoy. It's a passion. So to sit there and push through a book that is like, meh, no, I don't think so anymore.
yeah. Yeah, I like that you notice within a page limit that it might not be working for you. I try and give, maybe 2 or so hours on the audio and, maybe 100 pages in a book to see. But I feel so guilty, especially with an arc, and I love that you said that.
Yes.
And for listeners who are wondering, an arc is an advanced reader copy of a book that hasn't come out yet. Sometimes we get these books whether through NetGalley or the publisher relationship, and they send it for an honest review. And there are some arcs where I'm like, I just have to push through because like I'm grateful to have this opportunity,
Right.
and I don't want to tell them like, yeah, man, I couldn't finish couldn't finish. How do you navigate that? Like, that either telling the publisher or just saying like someone spent a lot of time on this and I appreciate it, but this isn't for me.
Yeah, and when I first started getting arcs, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited! Look at me, I'm getting these." So I'm pushing through. I'm pushing through, and I'm being 100% nice. I'm lying sometimes on how good this
Mm,
book honestly was, but now it's to the point where I've had to slow down on the arcs because it's just overwhelming. So now I want to be honest because I feel like they're sending you these books for your honest opinion. They don't want the fluff. They want to know, did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Or should there be improvement? So I'm actually honest now. I'm very honest. Like if it's like a below a 3 star, I'm gonna be honest and I'm gonna let them know it's not something I'm gonna post anywhere or anything
mhm,
like that. But I feel like if they're sending you these books, they're not sending you these books for you to lie. They're not
Mhm.
sending you these books for you to be like, okay, I'm not going to read it. They want to know your honest thoughts. So it took a while because, when you're starting off and you're like, I feel so excited to get these books that nobody's read, that you're just like, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to
Right.
be honest. But they're asking for you to be honest. So I tell people now, look, if you get one, be honest because it's what they want to know. You don't have to plaster it around any type of site or your Instagram or
Mhm.
TikTok or anything like that. Just let them know, like in an email or something. Just be real. You got to
Right.
be authentic.
Right, right. No, I definitely appreciate, and I'm sure they appreciate that authenticity. So do you post any negative reviews? Like if you,
Yeah.
even if it's not an arc, like a book that you've read, like I'll go back to my happy people example. It was a 3 star, and for me a 3 star is fine. It wasn't horrible, it wasn't fantastic. It was okay. And so I stopped posting my star rating and I just kind of
Mhm.
leave it, but I give my thoughts, and in that review I said, is this the best book I've ever read? No. Was it fun in the time? Sure. And just kind of leave it like that. So, are you posting some of those negative reviews on things that you read? How do you navigate that?
Yes. If it's not an arc, yes. If it's a book that's been out or anything that I pick up, yes. For a while, no. But now I have because I've been honest because I've seen people post books and it's like, oh, this book was amazing. And then I read it and like, no, it was not. So it's like it's like, do you be honest? Like maybe they did think it was amazing. I'm not gonna say that they're lying, but there's sometimes where people look at your page or look at things that you post for recommendations.
Mhm.
So if I sit there and I sit up there and I said this book was just 5 star, I want to reread it again, and I'm lying, I don't feel that I'm being authentic. So therefore, it's like if I read a book that's not good, I'm going to tell you that to me, it was not good. I'm going
Mhm.
to be honest. Now, you can take from that, hey, maybe she just didn't like it. It wasn't for her. I can try it out myself. Or you can be like, well, she said it wasn't no good, so I'm not reading it.
Mhm.
So, and there's sometimes when people post negative reviews, and I'm like, I don't think I want to try that.
Mhm.
So it saves me time and energy on reading something that I may get to page 10 and be like, oh, no, this is not it.
Right.
So it's like be honest with your followers and your friends on things that you don't like. I mean, we can all talk about the things that we love and oh, this is great, but be honest with the things you don't like. I don't really trust a reviewer, whether it's a movie reviewer or a book reviewer or just any type of influencer, that everything's great
Hmm.
because that's not true.
Yeah, yeah, I follow some of those. And while I respect, their decision, I've been trying to learn how to share honest opinion. And even if I didn't like it, suggest like you might like this if
Yeah.
A, B, and C. Try it out. But I
Mhm.
do appreciate honest reviews because then I might still read it, but now maybe I'm getting it from the library instead of,
Yeah.
trying to order the special edition because it's beautiful and I'm hoping I'll like it.
And
Yeah.
you brought up the library, and I'm going to say something about the library. Last year, when I first started, I'm buying all of these books. These books, I'm just keeping them all. Like I said, I look around. There's 100 in here that I know I have not opened. So towards the end of last year, I made a vow to myself to start utilizing my local library, and I was like, I can't take pictures for Bookstagram with a library book. That's how I was in the beginning.
Ah,
And now I live at that library, honey. And I feel like if I love the book, then I add it to my collection. I don't have to. And I think a lot of people that start off with Bookstagram, because I was one, feel like you have to go purchase all of these books. And you
right.
don't have to do that. Utilize your local library. See if you really love it. Audio books. See if you like, I really want to have this book in my collection. People don't care where you get the books from. They just want to know if you enjoy them. So I'm glad you brought up the library because I feel like I'm there all the time. I come home, my husband like, you got another bag of books? Yes, I do.
Yes, no, I completely agree. I did that quarter 1 of last year because I was trying to rein it in with all my spending, and I need to get back to that. At the end of last year, my sister was here for the holidays, and she counted. I had like a book stack over here, and I have my TBR cart, and I have 2 book stacks on opposite sides of my TV where my dresser is. And she was like, "I wonder how many books this is." And it was like 73. And she was like, "Jay, you have 73 books in here that you have not read yet." And I was like, "Point taken. Point taken. I need to get back to the," and honestly, some of them are I've put on my Pango site because I no longer have an interest in reading them. I was
Mm.
influenced by, someone who was like, "Oh, this is great." And I read page 1 and I'm just like, do I care about this story? I don't think so. I don't think so. So yes, reading from the library, the ebook, the audiobook, the physical book from the library, and then if I like it now, and maybe now I can find it on Pango and I can get
Yeah.
it, from another book lover for a lot cheaper than I would get it, in the actual store. Are there genres or tropes that you tend to avoid because they just don't work for you, other than dark romance?
Oh, dark romance, child. That was a little rough for me, but yeah, that's the that's the main one. Like the book was written. I'll talk about that. The book was written very well.
Mhm.
It just was not for me. I couldn't do it. I thought I didn't like Age Gap until I read Part of Your World, and it was an age
Mm.
gap. So I may give it another chance, but really anything I can really read. I have no issues with anything.
What's made some books like a miss for you then? Like as you're putting things down, what makes them, is it the characters that you're just don't care about? Is it the plot, the writing style? Like what usually makes something where you're like, I don't know about this one.
So it's all of those
Mm,
things. It's the characters. If I don't feel like, oh, this character is interesting, or the character's going to grow within the book, I'm just like, no thanks. If it takes too long to get
mm,
to the beginning of a point, it's like I don't have time. And then also, if I feel like the plot is either something that maybe I have read before and it wasn't good,
mm,
or a plot that I kind of maybe don't even understand, maybe it's just not for me, then for me, it's like, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. I'm not gonna waste any more time on it because, like you, I have 100 books that I can be reading that may be better than this one. So that's how I usually get. The main thing is if it's taking too long to get somewhere, I can't.
okay. Okay, that makes sense. What makes you push through other than like arcs where you're trying to see what makes you like if you're feeling kind of I'm not sure but I'm just going to keep going, is it because it's a big sensation online or you like the author, like what kind of makes you push through instead of DNFing?
Yeah. One thing would be because a lot of people like it. They
Mm,
said it was good. Maybe I'm just not getting to that point yet to where it starts getting good. Another thing, it may be the author. Anything by a black author, I'm going to give it a shot.
mhm,
So I'll try to push through, but if it gets to a point to where it's like, look, I do not relate. So I close those. But yeah, it usually has to do with, everybody else says they really like this book. What am I missing? Maybe I'm just not there yet. So I'll keep
mhm,
pushing. Now I may not push all the way through. I may get to a point like, well, this really is not for me. And that's it. Or black author, get to the point it's not for me. Shut it down. So yeah,
mhm.
that's usually where I either try to push through all the way or at least push halfway through before I make a decision.
I feel like with romance, that's probably really kind of easy to do. You're usually meeting the love interest in the beginning, and the story's kind of progressing. And probably with thriller too, like you're kind of, you're meeting all the suspects and it's going on. I have a hard time doing that with fantasy. I don't know if you read a lot of fantasy, especially because some of the fantasies are, 500-600 pages. So it's like 100 pages
Yes.
isn't going to give me much info that I need.
I
So
did read a fantasy last year though. Because I that's another thing. I'm not a fantasy girly. So
mm,
it was by a black woman, black author. It was Sign of the Slayer by I think Sharina Harris. Yes, I think it was
hmm,
Sharina Harris. Loved that book. It was amazing. It was a black author with black characters. I loved it.
okay. I don't think I've heard of that one, so I'll definitely have to look it up. I think fantasy can be difficult to get into. Something that has helped at least me with some of the higher fantasy ones. Like right now I'm reading N.K. Jemison's The Fifth Season. I've heard nothing but great things. I believe it won, I don't have it next to me. I believe it won a Hugo Award. Like this is, an N.K. Jemison Black author making moves in the sci-fi field. And this is like one of those books, like, for fantasy and sci-fi people like Brandon Sanderson, a white male author is like really big, kind of like how
Mhm.
James Patterson is kind of big on the thriller side. She's like, her books are up there, like diehard sci-fi people who love Brandon Sanderson love N.K. Jemisin. So I had a really hard time though, and what helped was listening to the audio at the same time. So I'm currently now listening to the audio while I'm physically reading it, and it has made a world of difference, especially because of the way that it's being read. Even when there aren't commas, there are pauses and emphasis on things that I wouldn't have read it that way, which give the book a different meaning. So I like to tell people for fantasy, like that might, and sci-fi, that might be something helpful if there is a book that you're really trying to get into to see if it's any good. But it's definitely taking some time. She kind of writes similar to Toni Morrison in the sense
Mm,
of like there's some like hidden meanings and some,
yeah.
some things where it's like you kind of just gotta keep reading, and at one
Yeah.
point it's all gonna make sense.
Well, I have to try that with fantasy books. That's a great little idea. I'm gonna try that.
It's definitely been helpful. So with your thriller, because it sounds like thriller is like your key,
Yeah.
that's your baby. And I think I see is that Agatha Christie's
Yes,
and then there were none.
that is my all-time favorite
Is
thriller book.
it?
Yes,
I
I've read. I don't know how many times I've read that book.
do you like any of her others? That's the only one I've read from her.
They were okay, but this one is just. I don't know. I love this book, and I read it a long time ago, of course, but I got this one. I was in Chicago for something and it was just there and I didn't own it. And I
Mm,
was like, I have to have this book. So, you know what? Now I think I'm gonna read that next. Now that you done brought that up, because I haven't read it in so long that sometimes I don't remember everything. And it was just so good. Just a
yeah.
great book.
That, and see, that was one, again, I can never guess who done it. And that was one, and I was like, I don't know where we're going here, but I mean, it's a fun ride, and I guess it'll be revealed in the end. And I know that that is a big one that a lot of people have remade. They use this like remake or
Mhm.
reimagine. I don't think I've read any reimaginings from Black authors. Have you read any, just in general, that have been worth a try?
I have not.
Okay, just curious. Knowing that thriller is your top, is there anything that you've read that's like totally shocked and surprised you, that's been like maybe an outlier, like a romance, or I don't know if do you read any horrors or mysteries?
I don't read any horrors yet. I think I want to get into that, because I'm a true crime girly. So
Mm,
I think I really need to get into that. Yes, and that's I'm glad you brought that up because that's a huge one. Because lessons in chemistry, I would have never picked that up. I would have never picked it up. And I remember book club. We have a book club at work, and someone said we should be reading this for book club, and I'm like, historical fiction, which use that term lightly. I guess people kind of don't feel like it was historical fiction, but
mm,
I I listened to it. I did not read it. I listened to it
mhm.
because I felt like I started reading and I was like, this, I'm not going to finish this.
Yeah,
I'm not. So listening to it, and I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I felt like, I'm listening to a woman that knows what she wants, and regardless of what's going on, she's going to do it her way. And it was inspiring. I know a lot of people go back and forth. She couldn't have done this as a scientist and blah, blah. I don't care. I
right.
don't care. The story was good. And then to see the series that they had was even better. So I felt like that was a book right there that truly surprised me because there's no way that I would have picked that up.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I think it came up on Libby, and I was like, "Oh, it's available instant download, sure." And yeah, I was really surprised by how much I like it. I still haven't watched the series yet. And I agree, listening to it, especially like when she started using like a lot of scientific words, I was like, "Oh
Yes.
no, I would have been out if I would have read this
I don't know
physically."
what this is. Sounding it out, not doing that.
It would not have translated the same. So yeah, I agree. That one was definitely really good. And I don't know. I would think of it as a historical slash woman's fiction. I mean
So
it
would I.
happened, it was right, the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't know. This is just me speculating and thinking like if historical fiction has to be set off of a no, it doesn't have to be set off of a real event.
No.
At least I wouldn't think so. I'm thinking about House of Eve by Sadiqa Johnson, and that
Yeah.
one was set in 60s maybe, 50s, 60s, and I refer to that as historical fiction, and it's not
Mhm.
necessarily centered around a factual event that happened in history, but just things that
Right.
happened during that time period. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know people were trying to say that it wasn't.
They did
What are
not. They was like, "This is not historical fiction." I'm like, "Then what is it?"
what's before we get into the last round, I have just two questions for you. What is a book that you predicted was going to be a hit for you? Just because knowing your reading taste and you're like, oh, this is really gonna work, and it did.
They're Vicious Games by Joel Wellington. Oh my God. You don't understand. Like, I had it on my wish list. And I was like, somebody's gonna get me this book. And I just knew it. And I just knew it. And I was like, I would go to Target and they would have two, buy two, get one free. And I'm like, I'm gonna wait because somebody is gonna get it for me. Till the point I was like, you know what, I'm not waiting no longer. Got that book. And I was amazed by how just beautiful it was written. That was a book that told a story that I feel like, and I've mentioned this before in one of my reviews, that this could honestly be happening
Yeah.
in places, and it's scary to think that, but we know how the elite work. And it was just like this book, uh, I was like, I bought it myself. I couldn't wait any longer. And, it was amazing. Like that is another book that I will reread because it was so amazing.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I read that in December, and I was very like, my sister was like, "Oh, you'll love it." She read it before I did. We were supposed to buddy
Mhm.
read it, but she was tired of waiting on me. And she was like, "Oh, you'll love it." And I was like, "Okay, we'll see." Again, like it had been a really great year for YA thriller
Mhm.
horror books. So I was like, "All right, I'll definitely make time over the holiday to read it." And I read it and I was just like, I think I was on the other end because I was like, this could not happen in real life. Where are these people's parents? Nobody's parents would allow this is not. And my sister's like, ma'am, it probably really could
Yes.
happen. I was
Yes.
like, I
I
don't
feel,
believe.
those elite people, those secret societies. This could really, I feel like this is probably happening somewhere.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
scary.
yeah. Yeah, it's scary to think. But it was so good. It was so
It was.
good. It was so realistic. Oh, I loved the way that it went with the ending.
Yes.
No spoilers, guys, but I was hoping that I don't know, I was hoping that it wasn't going to just have this unrealistic feel and everyone
Yes.
was going to right off into the sunset and
Yeah.
everything was going to be like okay, because that wouldn't have felt realistic for what was
Right.
happening in the book.
Right.
But I definitely, when I got to the end, I was like, and that is a good ending.
Yes,
That
it
is
was
a
real.
great way. Yes, that is a great way
Yes.
to end this. So do you have any specific tips for someone who is trying to, I guess, figure out their reading taste, what's going to work for them? How do they get to this point where they are picking up more books that they know are going to be hits for them?
So the first thing I would say is go to the library. That's number one. Let's not waste money on books that you may not like. So that's
Mhm.
number one. Look to people's bookstagrams or Goodreads or things like that to see what other people are reading and look at like the synopsis and see if it's something that I may want to give that a try. I may want to read that. just, there's some people that are just romance, all romance. Sometimes you need to step outside of your romance bubble and see what else is out there, because you may find some amazing books. But yes, the library is number one. Do your research online to see, maybe read about the book. Don't just pick up a book because so and so said it was a hit. Don't just pick up a book because the cover is gorgeous. I have done that. Don't pick up a book just because. Read what the book is about. See if that's something that fits with you. See if that's something that's exciting to you or something that you may enjoy, and get that book. Get it from the library. That way, if you don't enjoy it, you don't have buyer's remorse.
Right. I like that. Yes. And the reading, doing a little bit more digging on what the
Hmm.
book is about.
Yes.
And what is happening, the style, all of that. I heard someone that I follow on YouTube. She was saying that she's realized that books that don't have a lot of dialogue don't work for
Hmm.
her. And so something that I think is really great is listening to other people when they're saying what did or didn't work for them, because then you start to think like, huh, do I like that? Do I not like that? And so when
Right.
she said that, I was like, wow, that is an interesting, like, I've never heard anyone say like they have a hard time reading books that don't have a lot of dialogue. And so when she's in the bookstore, she literally not reading it, but it's kind of flipping through the pages to see, am I getting a whole page of descriptive text for 15 pages? Because if so, this might not work for me. And I thought that was really interesting. And honestly, it's that way with N.K. Jemison's book. But now that I'm listening to it,
Mhm.
it's so much, but she's descriptive, and we're hearing what these characters are thinking and witnessing and seeing, but there isn't a ton of dialogue, at least within the first 150 pages that I've read. There isn't a ton of dialogue happening, so I think
Yeah.
that is something, kind of listening to what other readers are saying that they like and don't like will kind of help you identify, like, oh yeah, I don't like that in that
Mhm.
book. And then what about branching out? Trying something new? How what any yeah, would it be the same, kind of reading or doing deep dives, listening to other reviews? Like if someone's like, I want to try a fantasy this year, or
Mhm.
dark romance, I've never heard of that. But what?
Yeah. So speaking of that, I did that. I was just like, you know what? Let me give something else a chance. I just jumped into it and I was like, let me just give something else a chance. Now, while that one didn't work out for me and it kind of turned me off on the whole genre, that's okay. I tell people, like, if you want to just try something new, because a friend of mine asked me, how do you know what you like? How do you know what to try? And it's like, you just try it. Just hop in. Say you don't read women's fiction, grab a women's fiction book and read the back of the book, see if you may enjoy it, and just try it. Also, we're all on Bookstagram or Book Talk or whatever. If you may feel like you may be interested in a sci-fi book, see what the top ones are. Maybe you can get into the synopsis of those and see that maybe, hey, this may be something I may enjoy. So just jumping into it is a big thing, but also maybe doing a little bit of research on some of the most liked or popular books for that specific genre may help too.
I agree. And I think I can't speak for all bookstagrammers or content creators,
Mhm.
but I think asking, like, if you've seen someone post about a book where you're like, that sounds kind of interesting, I think
Mhm.
asking that creator, like, I've never read anything like this. Can I DM you and ask you some questions about it? I'm trying to figure out if this would be, a good fit for me, or just asking more
Yeah.
questions in their comments. And I know, don't get offended if they don't respond, especially if the post is a little older, because sometimes it
Mhm.
takes time to respond to stuff. And if they don't respond, it doesn't mean that they didn't want to talk. Maybe they just didn't see it. But I think that is because that's, for the most of us, that's why we're here, is to talk about books, is to give
Yes.
suggestions, is to help you find a book that you love. So I think, asking one of the creators that you follow, especially if you seem to have a lot of similar tastes
Mhm.
in a specific genre, then asking them about something else that they've read to see if that might work for you.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, to me, I'm going to respond to whatever anybody asks me, because that's what we are there for. We're there to talk books. So, any questions, I welcome them.
Okay, well, we are coming up on time. My last couple of notes here. Do you have a few book recommendations that you would love to just give people? Whether they're trying something new or something that's been a hit for you that you think people should go to their library and check out.
Yes. Well, one will be out in a couple weeks by one of my favorite authors, Kennedy Ryan. This Could Be Us. Amazing. Loved it. Everyone needs to read it. And if you have not read Before I Let Go, you need to read that one first. Also, yours truly, of course, by Abby Jimenez. I fell in love with her from that book. And then, of course, we just talked about it, and I didn't mean to bring it up prior, but They're Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. Those are three books that I encourage everyone to read.
Yes, I co-sign on the two. So I have both of Abby Jimenez's books behind me here. I haven't read them
Mhm.
yet.
Oh
Um,
my God.
I haven't read them yet, but that she is on my list, and hopefully next month I can at least get to. So you would suggest starting with Part of Your World before yours
Start with
truly.
Part of Your World.
Okay.
Yes, because someone's story from Part of Your World, who I'm obsessed with, her name is Brie Ortiz, and she is the funniest person I feel like I've ever met, and I don't even know her. Her story is yours truly.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. I will circle back to you once I read that. I'll come back and let you know like how I felt about that book. Okay. And
Okay.
then so this last round is called There's a Book for That. And I'm
Okay.
just going to fire off some questions to you and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
All right. So a nonfiction that you love.
Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I read it every year.
I forget about that was a good book. Agreed. A popular book that did not work for you.
We're gonna go back to Colleen Hoover, and it was Never Never.
Ooh, okay. Is that the blue one?
It's like black, purplish,
Oh,
and
okay.
she wrote it with Taryn Fisher as well. It was just, and then I'll say on another level, Night Crawling by Leila Motley. I could not finish it.
Oh, that's the orange cover with the girl with the
Yeah.
braids. It's like the Oakland
Mm-hmm.
something
It's
something.
Oakland. Yeah, she's from Oakland, and they're night crawling. Like that's what they do, and
Oh,
it's just did not work
it
for
didn't
me.
work for you. Got it.
No.
Got it. Got it. One of your favorite audio listens.
Since I am a crime junkie, it will be All People Here by Ashley Flowers.
Ooh, okay. I haven't heard of that one. A classic book that you loved.
So I'm gonna sound like a child here, but Charlotte's Web by E.B. White is one of my most favoriteest books. Plus, Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't think I've ever read Breakfast at Tiffany's. The
Ugh.
last book that you purchased.
I purchased it. I was going to an Arthur event and I got sick. See, this is my year of sickness, and I couldn't make it. But I was gonna go meet Zio Axelrod, so the last book purchase was Girls with Bad Reputations by her.
Oh, okay. All right. The last book that you added to your TBR.
Nikki Chronicles by Sharayla. Sharayla is a friend of mine, so she's a local author to Kansas City,
Okay.
and it is an erotic novel. And I have not started it. I've never read an erotic novel, but I'm excited to read it.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you're dropping so many books I've never heard of. And guys, just a reminder, everything that we mention here is going to be linked in the show notes so that you can easily find it. Okay, next, a book that you read in less than 48 hours.
So we talked about yours truly already, but there is another one that it was very short, like it's 62 pages. So I mean, hours isn't even the amount that I've read it, but it was Dear Vicky by Octavia Grant.
Hmm.
It was mind blowing.
In 62 pages.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, you must read it.
Ah, okay. I'm gonna have to look that up. That's something I could finish in a night in a sitting.
Yes, yes, you can,
I
because
get
you won't put
so
it down.
nervous with novellas because I'm like, I don't know if you can convince me of anything in these short amount of pages.
Yes. In
Okay.
this one, yes.
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 Okay. I'm gonna do it and I'll let you know. And the last one is a book that brung you or gave you joy.
My all-time favorite book, Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan.
Yes. Oh, Perfection. Oh, that's such
Yes.
a great note to end on. Is there anything else that you want to tell the listeners if you want to remind them where they can find you on social media?
Sure, I am on Instagram under Lit and Listen. So that's LITNLISTEN. Same name on TikTok as well. I haven't really got much up on there yet, but I plan on that was a goal for this year to start doing my reviews there. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Ask me any questions, book related, life related. I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I loved having you on. Love finally like getting to see your face and sit down and talk to you.
Same.
Maybe in the future we can bring you back and talk about especially some of these romance books and some of the books that you suggested. We could talk about my thoughts on them and continue the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. All right, guys, until next time, we will talk to you later. Bye. Hey, book lovers, one last thing before you leave. Are you currently looking for a group to read and chat about books with? If so, I'd love to invite you to join us on our current buddy read of Anna Maria and the Fox by Lina de la Rosa. We'll be having a virtual meetup to discuss this book on Sunday, May 19th. All of the details, including the link to join the discussion and our monthly book thread, can be found over on the Geneva app, which you can access by clicking the link in the show note. Quick reminder that all books mentioned in this episode can also be found in the show note. Thanks so much for joining us and wishing you a wonderful reading adventure until we meet again. Chat soon.